Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Emirates Stadium, and what a stadium this is as well. By the way, I can just see to my right a few yellow and green shirts beginning to enter the away end. Quite a big allocation. It looks like the Norwich City have got here today in the Emirates, painting one corner of it yellow and green. We've seen a few Norwich City players come out and take a look at the pitch early on. No sign that I could see of either of the new additions, but we shall see. We're about 2 minutes away from the team news now, so we should get an answer on that fairly soon indeed. Pad, let's bring you in. You're sat in a bizarre way about 2 yards away from me, so talk to us a little bit about what you're expecting from Norwich City's team today.
Well, we're pretty sure Billy Gilmore's involved for the simple reason that we saw his mother trying to get a ticket to get in the ground. So the Gilmore family are here in force, and no doubt, all joking aside, you'd be very surprised if Billy Gilmore isn't involved. I think more interestingly is who might be alongside him in the midfield area, namely, of course, Matthias Norman. I think we took a lot from Daniel's comments and the tone of his comments yesterday, where he essentially, I think, more or less said it's probably too soon for Ozan Kabak for the reasons he stated about really that midweek outing for Turkey against the Netherlands was his first really competitive game in many months since April. So I wouldn't expect, off the back of what Daniel was saying, to see him in the 11 in a minute or so. But Norman, yeah, I think so. I think he is somebody who has played for Rostov a little bit more prior to his move, and then he went and had 2 60-70-minute outings for Norway in World Cup qualifying duty. So I'm thinking probably Norman coming in. Maybe that would probably mean Kenny McLean dropping out. And other than that, it'll be interesting. I don't think he'll shake it up too much from the Leicester 11. Zolis coming into the thoughts is obviously the bit of the wild card option, but I wouldn't see him, famous last words as we're about a minute away, but I wouldn't see him in the 11. But certainly there's an option on the bench, and what an exciting option to have. So for me, I think the focus is all on that midfield. We assume it's probably still going to be a 3.
Sorry, Pad, I will cut across you. We do. It was famous last words indeed, because Christoph Solis starts for Norwich City today. This is their team. Some very interesting inclusions. They've got Tim Krul in goal, Max Aarons, Grant Hanley, Andrew Omobamidele gets a start at centre back, as well as Brandon Williams at left back. Lucas Rupp, Pierre Lees-Malou, and Kenny McLean the midfield 3, with Kieran Dowell on the right, Christoph Solis on the left, and Timu Pukki up front. The subs bench: Angus Gunn, Ben Gibson, Billy Gilmore, Todd Cantwell, Ozan Kabak, Matthias Norman, Milo Rashica, Jakob Sorensen, and Adam Eder. Pad, I'm going to throw it straight back to you, because there are some very big calls in there from Daniel Farker today, namely the inclusion of Andrew Omobamidele, who did impress for Ireland on international duty, but he's thrown straight into the mix.
Yeah, it shows what we know, or more to the point what I know. He'll never start Zolis. He starts him with Dowell on the other side as well. That's very interesting, trying to digest that. The amount of changes, 4 changes in total from the Leicester game. Rupp out, but even Norman on the bench. I'm just trying to digest it as we look now, and I think if we were going to roll the dice, we'd have probably thought Norman starts, but certainly Zolis, Dowell, and Pukki. Very interesting what Daniel's thoughts are there. I mean, the way the club have lined up, it's still a 4-3-3. Rupp at the base with Lees-Malou and McLean. Not sure immediate reaction to that. Maybe that's an admission that they're going to need certain qualities from that triumvirate. Maybe without the ball as much as with the ball, but you just worry immediately who's going to be able to get on the ball, set the tone in that area of the pitch, just in front of the back 4. And then, of course, a back 4 that includes on the left-hand side Omobamidele and Williams, 2 very young men, even with Brandon Williams' exposure with Manchester United. But yeah, that's Daniel going for it. No 2 ways about it. I mean, the fact that Gibson's on the bench, along with Kabak, would tell you there's no injury issues there. That's a straight up, I'm going to reward a guy who went away and played for the Republic and played with distinction. If Paul McGrath's telling you what a player you are, then you've got something about you, and on you go, son. As Daniel says, he takes them to the door, and then if he deems the time is right, then they have to try and walk through it. And what a stage for that man to put a marker down today. You'd obviously expect Kabak increasingly to come into Daniel's thoughts, but the stage is set. If he forms today and carries on in the same vein he did for his country, then what a story we've got developing there today. But my mind is, my eye is drawn back to that 3 of Rupp, Lees-Malou and McLean, and you think, will they get enough parity against Arsenal's midfield? I'm not sure. So, and you'd say, well, immediately Zolis's inclusion would be a counter-attacking strategy, but Rijeka dropping to the bench instead of Dowell would sort of suggest that isn't necessarily where Daniel's head is at, because if it had been Zolis and Rashica either side of Pukki, then it would very much smack of, we're going to have to soak up a lot of possession against us, a lot of the pressure, but we can hit on the break with a lot of early balls into those two to maybe exploit anything they see in Arsenal's back four. But Dowell in there, I don't know. It looks like he's trying a few different things today, and he will hope, obviously, with that selection, that the majority of them come off. But I don't think any of us really, with hand on heart, really saw that 11. So as always, when players come in who haven't been playing, the chance is there for them to try and put a marker down and extend their stay in the 11. But certainly today, we're going to find out a little bit more about Zolis, about Omobama Daly, and if they come up to the mark, then really exciting moving forward, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. I'm not sure we're going to have enough time to go through all of those, to be honest. Some really big calls from there. I mean, the first thing that immediately enters my head is I wondered just if Daniel's erred on the side of the players that he's been able to get in the training ground and work with for the last couple of weeks. Lucas Rupp has been around, Leigh Malou has been around, Williams has been around, Kieran Dowell has been around. So a few names in there that have been around Colney during the international break, and maybe he's decided to mix those in with some of the lads who have done well on international duty. Grant Hanley did very well. Andrew Omobamidele did very well. Lucas Rupp as a holding midfielder in the Premier League is going to be fascinating to see how that one develops. We're still waiting, I think, for the Arsenal 11, so we'll bring that to you in just a moment. Let's go to Lucas Rupp then, Pad, whilst we're waiting for. No, I've just got the Arsenal 11 drop, so I'll read that to you now, actually, quickly before we speak about Lucas Rupp. They line up like this. They've got Aaron Ramsdale in goal, Tomiyasu, the new signing from Bologna, at right back, Ben White and Gabriel, the two central defenders, and Kieran Tierney, the left back. They've got Sambi, Maitland-Niles, Pepe, Ødegaard and Saka as their midfield, with Aubameyang up front. Their subs: Leno, Tavares, Cedric, Mari, Chambers, Partey, Smith Rowe, Martinelli and Lacazette. That is some bench in terms of talent. Pad, let's ask you about Lucas Rupp then. Back in the side after probably getting kicked out a little bit. It was a relatively poor performance at Manchester City. He was one of the two that were hooked at half-time alongside Dimitris Nunes. We see him back in the team today, but also back in a role that is maybe slightly unfamiliar for him, certainly in a Norwich City shirt, in that holding role that Billy Gilmour has occupied so well.
Yeah, I mean that is fair. I heard you talking there about maybe Daniel is factoring in the international exposure of these players, and Billy Gilmour, well, I think he started off the top of my head pretty much all those Scotland qualifiers and played a large part in the majority of them as well. So is he looking at that and the workload for that young man? Maybe wants to give him a bit of a breather. He's played Williams today, but obviously Nunes isn't available through injury. But both Williams and Billy Gilmour were culpable in key moments of the two goals they conceded at home to Leicester. And Daniel talked about they need to sort of grasp what it's about at this level, and if they do, then they probably go back to their parent clubs ready to play more of a leading role, more or less intimating that they still have a few areas of their games, understandably, because they haven't had huge exposure, that they need to learn. And maybe that's a factor with Billy Gilmour as well. Maybe today it's not the occasion he feels. Maybe ultimately, if he thinks Arsenal are going to dominate a lot of the ball, then he's going to need a different type of midfielder in there. And Rupp brings that experience. My mind always goes back with him to that FA Cup outing against Manchester United in the Project Restart era, actually, where I think it was the first time we'd seen him almost positioned in front of Norwich's back four, and his ability to read the game, to break up play, was notable on that particular afternoon. He'll want those type of qualities, I think, from the player in that area of the pitch. And McLean and Leigh Malou, two very experienced players, aren't they? Unlike a Gilmour, for example, unlike a Norman in terms of Premier League exposure. That must be in his thoughts as well, that he'll need experienced players in a key part of the pitch, and he certainly got that with that trio. But conversely, Omobamidele and Williams doesn't bring you a huge amount of experience. Max Aaron's increasingly is alongside the captain, the senior partner in that back four, and I think ultimately, Daniel is looking for a bit of a balance in terms of out of possession, but also clearly with Jonas' inclusion from the start, they need to carry a threat going the other way, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that man. Now I've digested this 11, and he's actually gone and put him in the 11. What a stage for that young man. Daniel said he was a mid to longer term project. Well, the mid to longer term project, I think, has been ripped up, and now we've got a very short term project. So go on, show what you showed against Bournemouth. Different opposition, clearly. Also for your country in recent days, and show no fear. And if he does that, he will cause, because of the nature of the type of player he is, he will cause Arsenal problems if Norwich can work the ball to him. So that's a really exciting looking 11, isn't it? And as you rightly say, going down the Arsenal lineup and the bench, they have quality. They shouldn't be anywhere near the bottom of the table. And if you're Daniel Farke, you hope that today isn't the day that they click. So yeah, but what we have in that Norwich 11 with those young players, there should be no fear or no sense of any inferiority, because with young players, they just want to get out there and play and show they belong in this company. And what an opportunity today. Certainly, I don't know what the flavour of the comments is, both on our chat here and on social media, but I would imagine there's quite a few saying that's a very bold and brave call from Daniel. So let's hope it comes off.
Yeah, it feels like opportunity knocks, doesn't it, for a few of these lads. On Bamidele, certainly Lucas Rupp again, certainly Kieran Dowell, who we haven't seen so far this season, certainly from the start. Jolis as well hasn't played a minute in the Premier League, thrown in to the deep end at the Emirates after what was a very good cameo for Greece, where he recorded an assist pretty much 30 seconds after he entered the pitch. And it was his pace that actually that allowed him to get that. So maybe that's what we're going to see today. A bit more of a solid midfield three with the aim to get Christos Solis in behind. Of course, you referenced that Bournemouth game earlier on. Think about the first goal that he scored. That came from a really nice pass from Kenny McLean. So there we go. And Norwich are in a position as well where they do have options on the bench. Todd Cantwell, Milot Rashica, Adam Eder, Josh Sargent does miss out, which is probably not too much of a shock given obviously his travelling over the international break. Let's end then, Pad, by speaking about Ben Gibson drops out of the 11. That fair for you, given sort of the evidence of the opening three games? Still looks like he's working his way back from that ankle injury, which was a significant injury, kept him out of proportion of the end of the championship title winning campaign. Ozan Kabak knocking on the door as well. Is the shock more that it's on Bamidele rather than it's Gibson out, do you think?
All day long, Connor. Yeah, huge shock, really. Particularly on the back of what Daniel said yesterday about Kabak not quite being ready, maybe. Wouldn't want to expose him at this early, given his lack of football relatively recently. So you immediately think, well, okay, he's going to stick with what he knows, and that was Gibson and Hanley. But Gibson, I think, hasn't quite looked up to the mark for me. But I think the injury is a huge factor. I'm trying to recall which game of the three he did a bit of media afterwards, and more or less said he was still feeling a bit of pain, feeling a bit of discomfort with that ankle. And you have to underscore that maybe he's still searching for fitness. But this is a very brutal environment to be trying to get back to full match fitness, and you will be exposed. And I think there was just instances. I thought there was a lot of good things he did against Leicester, but there were instances when the game became very stretched, and Leicester's strengths, of course, are finding the likes of Vardy and Barnes on the counter and overlapping fullbacks. And once or twice, Carone, I think we all saw it, didn't we? When he got isolated 1v1, the lack of pace was a bit of a concern. Obviously, the first goal, yes, Brandon Williams has given the ball away. Pereira has burst past him, but Ben Gibson, for me, was still favourite in that duel. And, his turning circle was not really what you need at this level. He was far too easily outstripped for pace, and of course, we know the rest. So don't worry, the game hasn't kicked off. Not I'm aware of anyway. But hopefully, those cheers will be coming from that away end over to my right. But yeah, I don't think Ben Gibson necessarily could have a huge amount of complaints if it had been Kabak. But the fact it's on Bamidele, I think he'll probably reflect on that and maybe know that he needs to step up to the mark again. I think Hanley will always play. I think he's such a key figure for Daniel now, both in terms of his ability on the pitch and his influence off it. But that is a complete curveball he's thrown in today, because I think most people think when Kabak's come in, it's a case of when rather than if. he comes into that defensive two, if he's going to stick with that. Well, today's selection would suggest that Andrew Omobamidele is now a very, very live option. If, to repeat what I said earlier, he grasps this opportunity and shows that he belongs at this level. If he does that today, then he's the man in possession. Daniel has shown it. Max Aarons, look how he came through. Jamal as well, Ben Godfrey. If these young players take their opportunity, they will stay in this side under this head coach, and that's one of the intriguing subplots to today. Irrespective of what the result ends up being, if Andrew Omobamidele doesn't look out of place against the Aubameyangs, potentially against the Lacazettes, then what a step forward for that young man. And it's going to make that battle for the central defensive part of this team very, very interesting moving forward.
Yeah, I'll tell you what that cheer was for. Crystal Palace have just gone 2-0 up against Tottenham Hotspur. That, of course, welcomed in these parts. Ollie Skip's team down to 10 men as well. I think Jafik Tanganga got sent off. But anyway, we digress. That should wrap it up there. As you say, Paddy, a fascinating team selection from Daniel Farker. We will get his thoughts on why he named at 11, of course, after the game. PinkUn.com, the place to go, live blog, all the analysis and reaction as well. We'll leave you with a nice shot of the yellow army in that corner. That away end is filling up nicely. A nice splattering of yellow and green shirts over there, as you can see, just about on Pad's camera. Thank you all very much for watching. Stay safe. We'll see you soon.